in a few trustees, and I believe you said the only trustee we don't think is joining us tonight is Julian. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Trustee Taylor is.
So we should have 6 here tonight. I see 3 of us currently.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhofer said he's having some technical difficulties. And
Okay.
Follow-up messages. It looks like Trustee Corvallin is there, and I sent a follow-up message to Trustee.
Okay, we'll give him a couple more minutes here. We'll give one more minute because I know Jonathan's trying to dial in or call in, unless he's the call-in user that just joined us.
He was trying to get the app to work, but it's not, so now he's going to try to call in.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover, is that you?
It is.
Okay.
All right. Welcome, Jonathan. In that
Thank you.
case, at 7:06 p.m. on March 16, 2021, I will call to order this meeting of the Town of Nederland Board of Trustees. Miranda, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Larson,
Here.
Trustee Apt,
Here.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover,
Here.
Trustee Danforth, Trustee Danforth, you may need to press *6. I'll come back. Trustee Corvallin
Here. Oh,
and Trustee Danforth.
I'm here.
Okay, and please note for the record that Trustee Taylor is absent.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Glad you could join us this evening. We have 2 items on the consent agenda, the warrants and minutes from the previous meeting. Any trustees have questions, comments, or a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Trustee Coombs Ismail and a second from Trustee Danforth. Miranda, please call the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Trustee Apt,
Yes.
Mayor Larson,
Yes.
Trustee Danforth,
Yes.
Trustee Corvallin.
Yes.
Consent agenda is passed. Moving on to public comment. Anyone from the public who would like to speak on any non-agenda item this evening, now would be your opportunity. You can have up to 3 minutes to identify yourself and whether or not you are a town resident, and then speak on any topic you choose to address. Reminder for those who might be on their phone, *6 will unmute you. Otherwise, raise your hand, start waving at the video, somehow catch our attention, or just start speaking and you can have your 3 minutes. Not hearing, seeing anything, or seeing any raised hands. We will move forward into our action item this evening, which is the investment plan from the NDDA. And I believe this is going to be introduced to us by a member of the DDA, Ron Mitchell.
Yes, thank you, Chris. The DDA, on the advice of Karen Garrity, hired a consultant to bring into us an investment plan commensurate with the conservative views of the board. I think she did a wonderful job. There are a few things in it we probably won't be considering, such as repurchase options and things like that. But nevertheless, this document was worked on by the board and by the consultant a lot. It's before you. I hope you've read it. If you have any questions, either Hope or I'll try and answer them. And this is to guide us to what we can do with funds that are uncommitted on projects that come in that we might not use and we could use for short-term interest-bearing investments.
Okay. Yeah, definitely have read through this with a lot of curiosity and questions. I just want a couple quick clarifications here. This will be a chance for the board to ask questions of Ron and of any other members of the DDA. I believe I saw in here that the plan is to invest 80% of the DDA's holdings in some form of conservative investment while holding 20% in cash reserves. Is that correct?
That's close to it, yes.
Yeah.
Those are targets. They're not cast in stone.
Right. I think there was plus or minus 10% on each of those, but depending because they'll float. But okay, that was one question I had. But and I didn't see, the investments are not my strong point. What is there an idea on sort of the expected return on this investment?
It's not going to be catastrophic. Very conservative. We would be doing well to make 1.5% to 2% in our current environment. If the interest goes up, we could make a little more.
Mhm.
However, we did buy a certificate of deposit initially, and we are making 7 times what we were making with it just sitting in a bank account. So that's in terms of overall actual cash, that meant instead of getting $61 for the last 4 months, we got about $900.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Other questions for the DDA from the trustees, beginning with Trustee Apt.
Yes, it seems overall to be a reasonable idea. I think, to me, having 80% invested seems a little aggressive. I realize that, maybe I'm too conservative, but I wouldn't think I would want a lot, be 100% invested. And, you're talking about short term, so I think having a certificate of deposit makes a great deal of sense if you can make that kind of income. With interest rates being as low as they are, it's hard to get an investment that's going to give you a good return and is also safe. And the stock market is, overall long term seems to be a good investment, but short term, you can really take some major hits. And the public employees retirement plan, or PARA, we know exactly what that stands for, has taken enormous hits for being overly optimistic about their investments. So I'd rather see us exercising caution rather than aggression, but it sounds like you made a real wise decision on the CD and things that are FDIC insured, which are the least impressive in terms of return, but are the safest would be, something, I would recommend.
I should mention on the CD that as a bargaining chip with the bank that we bought it from, we set up a line of credit. So in the event we come across a project or a deal or something where there's an immediate need, we can borrow against the CD with a line of credit. So in fact, we are getting the higher interest, and we have put ourselves in the position of being able to use the entire amount should we need to with a line of credit backed by the CD.
Yeah, that sounds like a good strategy. I guess one question I would have is typically when you have a investment manager, they want a percentage for managing it. And then when you're invested in different funds, they charge you a fee, an annual fee. So I think, those would be things I want to look at. I think you should look at carefully to make sure.
We've done that, and our plan is to, if we plan any major investment, we'll bring it in front of the board. The board is welcome to look at it and say, well, yes, we like it, or, well, we'd like to have it analyzed by a credit analyst. But to hire an investment firm would cost so much money going in and out every time that we did, particularly when we're only probably going to invest in municipal securities or only ones that are insured. The cost of that kind of representation would basically nullify what interest we would get, because we are taking a very conservative stance here.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Trustee Coombs Ismail.
I have a few questions, but just one quick one is that there's this this risk tolerance questionnaire that was provided but wasn't filled out, and I was just wondering what the purpose of that was.
Dana Andrews did that just to sample the general feeling of the board as to where they would want to go risk-wise. And the overwhelming consensus was, yeah, we'd like to make more than we're getting now, but we also want to be very conservative because we're dealing with public money and we don't want to in any way put ourselves in a position where we're taking a high level of risk. And so we're on the low end of the risk level.
So you were in the 16 to 30 range on that combined score on that form.
I don't have it in front of me, but so I can't tell you.
Yeah, I
we did
think it
that
was
about
that
3
very
months ago.
conservative.
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure, because the form itself, when I open it, at least it doesn't have anything filled out, so I wasn't sure what it was telling us.
Okay.
And
There
then,
were
sorry.
There were discussions before we filled out the form, and Dana Andrews did a very good job of educating the board in terms of what we really, as that kind of board, should look at. So not only did the study, she did some education too.
And then my other questions are more around amounts that are currently in account. So I'm wondering how much unencumbered funds does the DDA currently have, and that they would be looking to invest in this way? Like, what's the number on that?
Roughly 700,000.
700,000. And those unencumbered funds, where have they? I guess I'm still not quite clear on where they've come from, like, and why they're unencumbered as yet.
They're unencumbered because we had no policy of encumbering them. Well, wait a minute, I should back up. They're committed, but they're not encumbered. In other words, we've lined up projects for almost that entire $700,000, wayfinding, street improvements, beautification, this sort of thing, parking. And we will eventually be putting out the money for those that the programs that we've planned for. The income comes from two sources. We have a 5% mill levy, that's for operating expenses, and we have the TIF fund, which comes from the increased value. And so each year that the values go up, the theory of the Downtown Development Authority statute is to reinvest those funds in some manner to create the downtown in such a way that it increases the earning power and ultimately increases the sales tax revenue for the town.
Right. So these funds have already been allocated and approved by the Board of Trustees for specific projects, but while those projects are not done and the funds are currently not being used, you're looking to invest those funds.
That is exactly right.
Right. I just want to make sure that we're totally clear on how it all works. And then I guess my question would be, would you have the flexibility then, the DDA, to spend that money when it needed to be spent for those projects, or would there be a delay?
No, because we have this line of credit, we can go into the line of credit and fund whatever's needed and not touch the CD and lose interest by canceling the CD. This was basically a bargain. We told the bank we want a line of credit and we'll put up the money for the CD if you'll do it. And they danced around for a month or two trying to figure out whether they would do it or not. And they finally agreed. And
that line of credit is a 0% interest?
Oh no, not it. That line of credit is I don't remember the rate, but it's commercial rate.
So we'd be paying interest on that line of credit while hoping that the funds that were invested made.
Oh no, we don't pay interest on the line of credit unless we use the funds.
And right, but we want to use them. The plan is to use them.
No, the plan is to try and see if we can have our cake and eat it. Sorry to say that, but we'd like to get the interest on the CD and have enough cash reserves that are just as liquid, which means cash itself, to pay the upcoming bills that we have. So it's long-range planning. It's trying to make sure you see how exactly your projects are going to go. And if they go as planned, you should be able to get a 1% or 1.5% return added to your portfolio.
All right. I guess I still don't understand how we pay for projects if the money is invested.
You liquidate the investment.
Okay, that's what I was asking. So we
Okay, I'm sorry, I
would be
did.
pulling it out of the investment.
Okay, yeah, you liquidate
And
the
we'll have
investment.
the flexibility to do that quickly when like a big project is coming up and we have an opportunity. We'll still be able to do that even though they're invested. They won't be tied up, is my question.
That's right. Well, even if they're tied up, there's a method of getting the money, and that's the line of credit.
Okay.
Now, if we had to, we could cash the CD in and suffer a penalty if we really needed the money, and then we'd be back down to where we were with the money in the bank, getting 0.2%, 0.02% interest.
Yeah, I will say I am not in any way fundamentally opposed to this idea. I think it's an interesting idea. I think it's creative. My concerns are mostly around the projects themselves getting done, and this being a potential distraction from that, and potentially being kind of cart before the horse in a way, and that we're already looking towards investment of funds that we really should be spending more quickly. And that's really where my concern is, that we're more focused on, that the DDA is more focused on these ideas rather than actually executing the projects for which these funds have been allocated. And I certainly appreciate that these things take time and money shouldn't just be sitting in accounts. But at the same time, this seems to be quite a lot of work that hasn't gone in towards the actual projects that we're allocating these funds for. And like I said, I'm not against this fundamentally, but I'm just concerned about the priorities of the DDA and where these projects are going and whether or not they're actually going to be executed.
Okay,
this is
well,
an interesting idea. I just think it's very early.
Here's the thing. We have now approved 4 or 5 really major projects. We have committees of 2 or 3 that are sitting on top of these projects, and we're going to overload ourselves with any more projects until these are completed. Therefore, we have a time lag, and therefore we're doing this interest-bearing thing. Yes, we'll accrue some more money, but every DDA board member is loaded up and committed on their project to sit on top of it and make sure it's executed. So I hope that addresses the 2 concerns that you put forward, and they're valid concerns.
And
so
may I comment? I believe that there are 18 projects that the DDA is funding and has in line. They've budgeted $454,896.98 towards projects and are constantly approving projects, if not every meeting, every other meeting. So I think that if the board were to be engaged in any more projects, they're going to be burned out.
No, I
And
fully understand that. And
Yeah.
I am not in any way advocating for the DDA to take on more projects. That is absolutely the opposite of my thinking. My thinking is that because there are so many projects ongoing at the DDA, this seems like an additional project, an additional distraction, an additional kind of way of slowing down the works, as it were, for already overburdened DDA board members. And that's mostly my concern, is that we get the projects done and we spend the money that we've allocated, which I think is actually more beneficial in the long run than making incremental interest on that money. I'd rather the money just go, that we spend it on the projects and we get them done.
we're trying to spend it.
If you need any help spending money, I'm pretty good at it.
We appreciate the offer. Thank you.
Any other questions, Eric?
No, that's okay.
All right, thanks. Mayor Pro Tem Baumhofer.
No questions. Been kind of keeping on track of this. I have liked kind of the educational process that the DDA has gone through and kind of the input and how this was all put together. I'm very much in favor of this. And while I hear Eric's concerns, a lot of the time, because of the projects the DDA is funding, they have mandates and timelines outside of the DDA, such as CDOT timelines and other various construction timelines. So very awesome concerns and glad to see them brought up, but I'm fundamentally for this idea, and I think it is a creative way of doing more with less. I guess, you know, we always try to do the most we can with what we have up here in Ned, and this is a creative way of doing that with funds that are dedicated but have yet to actually be paid out as a result of the long scale timelines involved in infrastructure work. So.
Thank you. Trustee Danforth.
Yeah, I think I agree with both Trustee Kunz-Ismail and Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover that, you know, yes, there are concerns that, you know, we're just putting money into investments and not focusing on spending that money. But I know that with these longer timelines, as Jonathan pointed out, that there's potential to make money while those funds are allocated for a specific project. So we set aside, you know, say $100,000, $200,000 for a big project, that while that's sitting and while that project is ramping up and before we've gotten any invoices, that having that invested might be the better decision. You know, and reading through the packet here, the things that we're allowed to invest in are very low risk. So there's the potential for a downside, which is very small. There's potential for an upside, also very small. But if it were to go to the upside, you know, that's extra money in our pockets. So I think I'm for it. You know, as long as this doesn't become a distraction or this doesn't become something that, you know, we're locking funds up doing so. But, you know, as Jonathan said, with the long timelines, I think there's potential to make the investments and earn, you know, 3% or 4% on something, and that's a benefit. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Lindsay. Trustee Corvallin.
Oh, hi. Most of my questions have been answered. I was curious as to who's picking out the investments. Is it just a mutual fund? Is there any fees for pulling out the money? And then I guess the capital gains tax and all that will it just comes out of the money. But just curious, like, is Dana the one in charge of choosing mutual funds, or are you guys like cherry picking stuff, or is there any sort of ethical ideals regarding the choices?
Well, at this point, the board has entrusted those decisions to me.
Okay.
Within the guidelines, because again, if we have to pay an outside consultant an in and out fee, we're not going to really make that much, and it probably isn't worth doing the project. At some point, if we have a lot of funds backed up, why we will be getting some degree of money. None of the other board members are even remotely interested in doing this, so I'm the one that's doing
yeah.
it. And just so you all know, I am buying a bond, a surety bond for $1 million. It's in the works, so that if I should make some misstep, the town and the DDA will be insured under that bond.
Oh.
And what this document is really it's a guide. There are no plans as of yet to do any of the investment, but the idea was that before people started pulling in where they wanted to invest and what to do, that there needed to be a cohesive statement for the DDA to follow. So that's really what this document's for. It's not suggesting anyone's purchasing anything or do anything at this time. It's just saying that if and when that happens in the future, these are the standards from which the DDA will move.
Oh, okay. So I guess, well, Ron, with your choice of investment, are you just like going to be just picking a certain couple stocks and just keeping it there, or is it a mutual fund, or have you already made your decision, or that's further down the line?
Well, I'm not going to make any decisions until it's approved by you guys.
Right. Well, that's true. But I mean, okay, so that's the next conversation is you'll.
And there will be no investments in public stocks, whatever. It will be all in municipal bonds or mutual funds, things that are very broad coverage and very low risk.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Actually, Tanya's question brought up one point that that I don't think we have addressed, because Ron, like you said, mutual funds are mutual funds are an option for an investment vehicle. But Tanya brought up the idea of the ethical component. And so given our town's commitments to sustainability, our green energy pledges, our Paris Climate Accord pledges, is there anything in here that we can hang on to say that even if you were to invest in a mutual fund, it is one that does not involve any oil and gas money, or things of that kind of ethical nature that run counter to town's priorities? Or is that something we can add to it?
We could add that to it, certainly. I would not object to that, and I can look around funds and make sure that they don't have investments in those particular types of industries.
Right. I mean,
like that idea.
just throwing out here, I just can kind of see that, the town might not be interested in investing in oil and gas, or it might not be interested in investing in the defense industry. Just grabbing a couple off the top that I think maybe would resonate with people in the town, but it does open up a whole nother discussion about how we do those investments. And that brings me to the next question is, if the town would approve, if the board approves this policy tonight, you are then, the DDA through you is then enabled to invest $500,000 in the coming days, weeks, in some kind of investment. What is the process for that? Is this something where you're going to take it to the DDA board and say, I'm investing $500,000 in X mutual fund, or does it then come back to the board of trustees to have that kind of check on the types of investment?
I would bring a resume, for instance, if we do a money market fund, which again, it's going to be very, very difficult to get a hold of the entire portfolio of a mutual fund. I don't even know if you can, but I'll sure take a look at it. That's a question that I've never has come up to me before, but I understand it. I would say, okay, I see this mutual fund, or I see this money market fund. Here's the resume, the ratings, and I think it's a fine investment. Let's do it. And then if they say, well, how sure are you? Then that's why I'm buying a bond. If it fails for some reason, you can go against my bond for having made a mistake. I talked with my lawyers and my accountants about this too. And when that decision is vested in me, I've got to make really sure that I'm protected should I make a mistake. So I will take it to the board, DDA board. If it comes to you, you guys may be doing nothing but making financial decisions you're not advised on. And I don't, with the parameters we've set, these are so low risk. I don't think that the BOT would be interested in every one of these little things that we're going to be putting money into. It's basically going to help our not our working capital fund, but our operating fund out a little bit. It's going to buy the stationery and the stamps for us, and that's about it. So it's not really a big deal. If I were going to very high risk investments, then I'm sure you'd want to have a lot more oversight. But I don't think it's worth your time for us to bring every one of these little things to you. And,
certainly, but I think since it is just a small amount of money, I think it makes a pretty good statement if we are not investing in fossil fuels. If we're not investing in international funds that are, in Myanmar or some places of international conflict. So I think there might be some like Tanya, I think used the great word there, ethical issues within the investment that we might want to have some policy about, just so that we know that this is the money is representing the intentions and goals of the town of Nederland.
No offshore trusts, no things like that. They've got to be solid FDI insured firms and instruments.
So while we chew on this and think about if there's some way we can roll in these kind of ethical questions before voting on this, this is an action item, so I would like to open up the floor to public comment on this. If anyone who is in the audience and would like to speak on this proposed policy, now would be your opportunity. Again, raise your hand, wave on the video, start speaking, somehow catch our attention, and you can have up to 3 minutes of floor time to speak on the DDA investment policy. I see a hand up from Ms. Chippy. Kathleen? Okay, anyone else? Kathleen, if you do *6 on your phone, you can speak. Otherwise.
Hi, this is Barbara Hart, and I'm a member of the DDA, and I'm also a business owner in Nederland. I would like to ask that this be sent back to the DDA for clarification. I do not believe all of this has been discussed with the board.
Okay, thank you, Barb.
Barb, what is it that you haven't seen that's been put before you? This was put online by Hope better than a week ago, I think. Hope, you know the exact time you put this on the board emails?
It was the Friday before the DDA meeting, which was on the 10th, so 9876, yeah. It's been available for a little while. I think that maybe the question might be the actual spending of the funding. What this conversation is really about tonight is that there is a document that the board worked with Ms. Edwards on, just to make sure that when and if investments in the future are made, that there is cohesion and understanding. All the information there basically comes from the statute and was run through Paul Benedetti. And I'm fairly confident that the DDA would be very interested in incorporating some kind of concepts on sustainability. It was one of the reasons that this content was coming forward to everyone. As far as how much is going to be invested and where it's going to be invested, I think that the DDA board is still very prepared to sit down and even talk with that. I believe the treasurer would enact that possibly, or actually the executive director who has the ability to move and expend funds. So again, that'll be discussed further by the DDA, but I hope the focus doesn't sit on where it's going to go, because that I think is what Barb is trying to say. Is that correct, Barb?
Yes, we have not discussed investing any percentage of our funds specifically, and that is something that needs to be discussed by the DDA. And this is just to have an investment policy, which is the only thing we should be discussing tonight. And everything else needs to go back to the board, including if we need to have sustainability measures added to this.
I would like to seek approval for the policy as it stands, and we can take any recommendations back to the DDA board, discuss them, and bring them again to the BOT.
I did receive an email from Kathleen, and her message is she supports passing this.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Barb, for your comment and the clarification from both Don and Ron. If there anyone else who would like, public who would like to speak on this before we bring it back to the board to address those through our thoughts. Not seeing. Oh, thought I heard something. But not seeing or hearing anything. We will bring this back to the board for final thoughts and comments from the trustees or potential motions. I'll start here with my personal views. I came into this when it was first proposed months ago, kind of against it. I didn't like the idea of investing public funds in anything that was potentially had a risk to it. I've come around. I think it is, some of the questions that Trustee Coombs-Ismail brought up and the comments he brought forth, I think have cleared up and make me feel a little bit better about it. And I think I would like to see us, I think as a policy, this is a very strong policy. I think the implementation of this policy still has some questions for the DDA and the board to look at. I appreciate, Ron, that you are stepping up to do this, and I appreciate that you have taken out personally taken out a bond to protect these investments. But that actually makes me a little nervous about a individual business member and real estate investor in the town taking that kind of role in an investment for the business community. So what I would like to see is, personally, what I would like to see us do tonight is approve this DDA policy and send it back to the board for an implementation agreement and a plan for how this would actually move forward with approval or with those ethical questions that I brought up and that Tanya brought up in terms of only doing investments that represent the goals of the town, and also a idea of how this process works so that it is not resting upon a single individual who might be doing the investments. I feel like that needs to be a decision by the DDA at a bare minimum, and I would almost think that at first, and particularly if the funds go over a certain amount, I'm not sure what that amount is yet, but they only tens of thousands of dollars or more if in an investment, then that should probably still be approved by the Board of Trustees. I'm not a fan of this idea of these investments potentially happening outside the public view. So that was my personal view. Is I think it's a great policy. I think it's a great plan, but I think the implementation is the next step that we really need to work on with the Nederland DDA. So are there comments or thoughts from the Board of Trustees? I'll call here. Eric, saw your hand go up. You're the one with video too. Thought I saw your hand.
Yeah, I have that advantage, I guess. I agree with the vast majority of what Mayor Larson just said. I don't think it's a bad policy at all. I did forget to ask a question earlier, though, which was about another document that was provided to us that is titled Financial Planner and Associates Draft Policy Outline, and that the title of the document is Investment Policy Statement. And pretty much every single thing on it is TBD. And I'm just wondering what this document represents. Because I wouldn't want the BOT to sign up on something that is TBD.
I'm not sure the question here.
Yeah,
in
neither
terms
am I.
of To be determined. I can't read it. So
If you see the document on the screen now, I don't know if you can see it.
I can see it, but it's so small that I can't read it.
It basically says investment objectives are TBD. Time horizon is based on a bunch of fluctuations.
Risk tolerance,
is
liquidity,
TBD.
taxes.
There we go.
Right.
All right, that's much better. All right, yeah, that's it. Okay, the objectives. Risk tolerance with specific asset allocation. Well, we've gone through that in terms of what the thing is. We're investing in no stocks, whatever. We're investing in municipal securities or FDIC insured institutions that issue those securities. And each one, as I said at the beginning of my presentation, any investment that would be done would go before the DDA board. That was a given before it was executed. So I'm looking through here. I noticed the second time horizon is going to be driven by the projects themselves. And we know what those are, so we can time our investments to the execution of the projects. Let's see, risk tolerance. The risk tolerance is the lowest, and therefore the liquidity is designed to be as liquid as possible at the maximum return. Should we need things, we might lose a little money if we had to liquidate a CD. Right now, I see CDs as probably the simplest and easiest one to go with. The policy is very broad, and Dana said that we should review it annually, and it might need to be changed as market conditions change and as our projects change. We may well need to have a totally different strategy if we take on a long-term and rather high expensive projects. Most of these projects have been below $100,000, and the parking project currently on Big Springs is around 220,000. I don't remember the exact figures right now, and that's probably the highest so far. But if we were to take on a $300,000 or $400,000 project, that would take a lot more financial planning and would go before the DDA board. And if you want to review it too, it will slow down the investment by a month. I certainly agree with the climate action plans and with the idea of not investing in oil stocks or war material companies or things like that. And I think you could, or just leave it to the DDA board with your suggestion to add those to our policy plan.
Understood. I guess this is a question more maybe for Miranda or Hope. What exactly are we voting on? Because I don't see a resolution attached to this agenda item.
Yes, it's not a resolution. It's just merely the content of the policy statement. It was just a consortium of ideas of what the DDA can do to invest funds. When they first sat down, they initially talked about the benefits of high risk, but after working with Paul Bendetti and reading the statute, Dana realized and everyone realized that actually no, the funds can only be invested in low risk. So I think like Barb mentioned, you're just voting on whether this policy flies. You're basically approving what the DDA said that they approved or they recommend. So that's it.
Right. So just to be absolutely clear, the document that we will be approving is the investment policy statement of the Netherlands Downtown Development Authority, and no other documents.
And no other documents. Yes.
Great.
Yes, that's correct.
Just want to make sure we know what we're voting on here. And then I suppose I just wanted to reiterate that I think having a statement about Netherlands ethical concerns about places to invest in the policy statement would be very valuable. And I think that probably should be added to this as the mayor has suggested. I would really like to see that in there. I would also maybe like to see something about reporting to the Board of Trustees. I saw a statement in this policy document that there would be pretty rigorous reporting to the NDDA, but I would also like to see that the policy includes a statement about reporting the performance of these investments to the BOT on some kind of a regular basis.
Sure, the DDA does report their funds and their warrants, and then I heavily participated with Rita in the auditing of NDDA documents for the town. So yes, financial transparency it's just, to me, it's a given of an expectation.
Mr. Coombs, could we do a supplemental resolution or document to include what you're looking for and get approval of this one and then bring that forward to you at the next meeting? Would that be satisfactory?
I will be like, I think that it's feeling to, I don't want to prejudge anybody's decisions here, right? But it's feeling to me like the passage of this is likely. And so in that case, yes, I think a supplemental document that, or, statement of some kind around the ethics that both Trustee Corvallin and Mayor have brought up, I think would be acceptable. Probably. I will say that my gut reaction to this is still that I cannot find it in myself to like this idea. I think that it's still kind of not how I want to see the efforts being put in the DDA. And I also personally have a problem with the tax increment financing and the way that the DDA is funded, not the people who are on it, but the way that it's funded, I find to be deeply problematic. And to then go and invest those funds, I find to be another layer of making it problematic because it incurs this risk. I'm worried that there's only one person on the board who has interest in doing this because it doesn't really speak to a great deal of longevity. Like, what if the current treasurer leaves the board and then a new treasurer steps in who doesn't have this robust knowledge of investment strategies and who might not want to engage in this? Like, I just think that it's that we might not have the supports in place to really do this meaningfully in the long term, and it does concern me. So I'll be totally frank. I'm still leaning towards voting no on this, even though I can see its merits. But I would be much happier if there was a statement about ethics in there.
Thank you, Eric. Tanya.
Well, I also, I mean, I think it's really nice of Ron to put all this energy into this. I know he's got a lot of projects going on, but it is worrying to have only one person who wants to take charge on it. So it would, I mean, honestly, I think if Ron, did some research and just found like one good mutual fund that checked all the boxes, that way, if he decided to quit the DDA or whatever, it's really easy just to buy and sell into that one fund. I mean, like if it gets super complicated, I mean, exactly what if Ron decides to quit or, whatever. But my other question was, is there any like history of other towns doing this sort of thing?
Yes, there's plenty of municipalities. Boulder has a whole department that invests funds because, of course, they're a big city with a multi-million-dollar budget.
Oh, that's crazy.
And there's been some incredible mistakes made. Orange County almost went broke when their financial man invested in stocks similar to Bernie Madoff's pyramid. So most municipalities that have large budgets and have capital projects that they're saving for, or trust funds do look for things. You hit the nail right on the head. I'm going to find it and probably one or two investments that, should I leave the board or should I drop dead, someone could easily take over. If they had to, they could liquidate the CDs or they could let them run out. And with everybody having knowledge of exactly what I'm doing, somebody could step into my shoes very easily. And if they weren't interested in putting the time in it that I am, all the stuff could be liquidated. You go right back to where you started.
Yeah, that sounds good. Just to not make it complicated. Then I was just kind of like concerned with what Barb had said, that it was like a lot of this information was like new news to her. So, I mean, what we're basically going to say yes to, if we say yes, is this, we're giving the green light for this project, but then all the fine tuning goes back to the DDA for another round of approval with you guys?
Yeah, that's correct. And for example, I can tell you exactly what's coming down the pipe and the DD on the two. At the end of April, the biggest bulk of tax money will come in, and the board members with 18 projects are stretched pretty thin. So we're not going to do anything with that. And I will recommend the board to buy another CD and establish another line of credit. And then when we need those funds, or when we've determined what we want to do with those funds and the BOT has approved it, then they can be liquidated very simply and very easily. And
That's kind of your first step for this investment. Okay.
yeah, that'll be the first step. When we get more funds in April, or I'm not sure when the first payment comes in from the county treasurer, usually a month or so later, then I'll be presenting that to the DDA at the next board meeting. I'm bringing it up right now so that everybody's aware of what the next steps sort of are, so that you understand where our source of funds are and what the expenditures will be and how it will be done. But you're absolutely right. We have this broad project that has a lot of things in it that probably will never be used, and I won't ever consider. For instance, there's a lot in there on repurchase agreements. That's just too complicated to take before either board.
Okay.
And it wouldn't net any greater return if I did do it. So I'm going to set it up so that should I quit or should I demise, someone else could step right in and there would be no hitches.
That sounds good. Great. Thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Tanya. Lindsay?
Yeah, I think, for the most part, I'm on board with this and taking advantage of the time lags, between when funds are, selected to be used and when they're actually used. One thing I wanted to make sure that we had in place was a person to act as a backup. So for anything to go wrong, I work in IT, and sometimes we have one person who has all the information, and if they're out sick, that's of course when the server goes down or something happens, and there's no backup in place, and so it's quite catastrophic for that day. And so I want to make sure that if we need to liquidate money or something happens, that there's a backup person in place who has the ability to make these trades, who has the authority to do it. So, I'm not sure if the DDA has like a trading account with a large platform, a brokerage firm of sorts, that we have a backup person who's a named individual on this account who has access and the authority to make these trades or take over the account. Is there a way that we can kind of bake that into this, is to make sure that there's always a designated backup person on file?
It's already there. All of our accounts are joint signers, and there's 3 people can sign, so there have to be at least 2 signatures for any withdrawal, and of course the deposits. Anybody can give us money that wants to, but the executive director and the chair and the treasurer are those 3 individuals.
Perfect. Okay, that's really good to hear. And just kind of earlier, Ron, when you were speaking to it, it almost sounded like you said that the DDA has already purchased a CD. Has a transaction already occurred?
Yes, it has. And I gave a full report at the last meeting as to the interest that we had received on the CD to date, when we've only had it about 3 months, I think, which was 7 times what we would have gotten had we left it in the bank. And we got the line of credit as a bonus along with the CD. So that's what I was talking about earlier in the discussion, that should we need the money, we wouldn't have to liquidate the CD. We just activate the line of credit and then pay it back as the money came in.
Okay. And okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhofer?
I've always been for the baseline fundamental idea of this, just as I said earlier, making more with what you have. It's not a bad concept. I think what has kind of happened in the course of this discussion tonight is we have strayed away from the question actually before the board tonight, which is the approval of the investment policy as a policy, and gone a little bit more into the implementation. And I think in part of that process is where we get the comment from Barb, because I can agree that aspect of implementation and some of the things that perhaps Ron has been describing tonight have not been fully discussed among the whole DDA board. That said, as Eric has always already pointed out, all we are approving is this investment policy. it's a living document. I'm foreseeing this pass tonight and would have zero opposition to sustainability and ethical goals. So if somebody can formulate a motion, I would love to see us pass this investment policy as a living document to provide a policy framework for the DDA to move forward with this concept. And on the DDA's end, we have some discussion about implementation and how this carries through into the future, is what I would say.
Thank you, Jonathan. Alan, do you have any comments or thoughts?
I liked, Chris, I liked your suggestion, and I also agree with Jonathan. You know, I think what we're looking at here is approving a policy with implementation details to follow, and you know, sustainability guidelines. So I think I'm impressed with what Ron's approach is. I think it's a very safe approach, and I see some good backup plans. So I would certainly approve the policy with more details to follow, as suggested.
Thank you, Alan. Having heard the comments, I think there seems to be a general agreement coming around to accepting the policy, liking the policy that we're hearing before us, but then also wanting, as part of a motion, to be directing the DDA to develop a implementation procedure. And that implementation procedure would then involve the ethical considerations of what those investments might look like, and also the questions of who's responsible for making them, and having sort of a two eyes on any investment, or four eyes, I guess, two sets of eyes, so that there is some backup, there's some reproducibility, there's some catches for what might happen. So I think what we're looking at is a great policy that's been brought to us, and I want to thank Ron for all the work you've done on this. I want to thank the DDA for putting this together, and I want to thank Dana, who I don't think I see on here, but Dana, who put together this policy for the DDA. I want to thank all of you guys for the work you put into this, and appreciate that. I think we are getting very close, and I'd just like to see the policy approved this evening, and then I'd love to have the DDA dig into those outstanding questions about what those investments would look like and how they can best represent the goals of Nederland, of the whole community, in terms of sustainability, ethical considerations, and make that a document that can be modified by the DDA, or in the future, because those are things that may change. There may be times where there are new investment vehicles available that we decide we do or do not want because of involvement in certain tech fields, financial fields, et cetera, et cetera. And so that might be a place where we can really dive into those details. And then I would also just say that I'd like to see that happen before the DDA makes any further investments based on this policy. Let's really nail that down, so that even if that takes a little bit longer, into May, and we get the tax money at the end of April, we don't go jump and immediately start buying other investments simply because we have the money. But let's make sure we do it in a way that's right with Nederland, and has some implementation behind it by the DDA and the BOT.
Fair enough.
So I guess we'd be looking for a motion from someone on the Board of Trustees regarding adoption of this policy, and those, I'll leave it to somebody to frame that other piece in terms of directing the DDA in their implementation policy or implementation procedures. If anyone has a great inspiration on that.
Trustee Baumhover, you made a great statement there. I think that would serve as a motion.
I'm trying to formulate exactly how to make a motion with the sustainability desires.
We can do this in two pieces. We can make a motion to approve the policy as written, And then the second piece is really more, it's not a part of the policy. It would be more of a not a for from the Board of Trustees directing the DDA to develop an implementation procedure that involves investment priorities that are in line with the goals and beliefs of the town of Nederland. So we could do this in two pieces.
I like that suggestion. So I'll make motion that we approve the NDA investment policy before us tonight.
I'll second that.
All right, Miranda, we have a motion and a second on the table.
Trustee Apt,
Yes.
trustee Danforth,
Yes.
trustee Coombs Ismail,
No.
Mayor Larson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhover,
Yes.
trustee Corvallin.
Yes.
The policy is adopted. And then I would look for a nod of for from the board to direct the NDDA to develop an investment procedure to the implementation of their policy, something that would be in place and brought back for discussion by the Board of Trustees prior to any investments made by the DDA on their new investment policy. That would also involve, like I said, the ethical considerations of investments that are in line with Nederland's beliefs and town-wide goals. I saw a thumbs up from Alan. Trustee Coombs
support
Ismail.
that.
I heard a yes from Trustee
Yes.
Danforth.
I'll give you a nod.
Tanya? Jonathan?
Yep.
Yes.
We can't hear
You're
you,
muted,
Mayor
Mayor Larson.
Larson. You're on mute.
You're right. I managed to hit mute as I was moving the mouse off of that. Thank you. Ron, Dawn, thank you guys for the work you've done on this. We look forward to hearing more on what you guys come up with for a investment procedure and how this would work in terms of moving forward with this. And thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I just want to add that there won't be 2 eyes looking at what we do or 4 eyes. There'll be 14.
Even better, Ron. Yes, thank you. All right. We are moving into our one discussion item for this evening, which is with regards to the marijuana delivery question. We've been working on various pieces of the marijuana puzzle for the last 6 months, and this is the next piece to come out of our ordinance review committee. And I believe it will be introduced by our town clerk, Miranda.
Yes. So when the Board of Trustees was considering adopting Resolution 2021-03, opting out of marijuana hospitality establishments, Trustee Danforth had mentioned or made a request that the Marijuana Ordinance Review Committee also look at marijuana delivery, which, to clarify, is separate from hospitality, where it would allow marijuana to be delivered from a dispensary to a private residence. So we reconvened the Marijuana Ordinance Review Committee, and they met on March 10th. And they considered 3 options, which are similar to hospitality. It was to opt into marijuana delivery, to maintain the status quo and take no formal action of opting in or out at this time, or to opt out and make a formal statement through resolution that marijuana delivery would not be permitted in Nederland. The committee weighed the pros and cons, and at this time, they're making a recommendation that town take no action at this time, either opting in or out. The committee agreed that they felt like it would be more appropriate to visit this in a year from now, so March 2022, when hopefully the world has turned back to normal somewhat, and also to allow prime dispensaries to really get back into their normal groove and determine if that's something of interest to them. It was not necessarily financially feasible for a lot of our current dispensaries, and there became questions of, if allowed, could other establishments outside of our jurisdiction come in and do that delivery? So this felt like, rather than taking any official action, just keep things as is, don't opt in or opt out. Again, you have to opt in order for it to be allowed. So we're really at kind of a do nothing stage. So the question before you is Do you support the ordinance review committee's recommendation to maintain status quo and take no formal action opting in or out of marijuana delivery at this time?
Thank you. For clarification, this is marijuana delivery by either one of our local dispensaries or by a third party?
Correct.
It's all rolled into one, right?
Correct.
Okay. And we've not had anyone, either one of our local dispensaries or a third party, come to us for like us delivery.
Not at this time. There was a conversation in the ordinance review committee meeting about it, but the 3 dispensaries that we did speak with just said that it wasn't a feasible thing for them at this time. So that's why they supported that status quo, no formal action, because it may be something they'd be interested in town considering in the future, but just not at this time.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you. We'll go around the table here, starting with Trustee Danforth.
Yeah, thank you. So by taking no formal action, does that mean there are potentially companies that are currently doing delivery that
No,
we just don't know about?
yeah, the jurisdiction has to opt in. So in essence, taking no formal action is like opting out. You're just not making an official statement. No one would be allowed to deliver in Nederland unless an ordinance was adopted allowing such delivery.
Okay. That was my only question.
Okay. Tanya.
I don't really have any questions either.
Okay. Alan?
Since no one's requested the ability to deliver, it seems like a moot point. So I have no questions.
Okay. Jonathan Baumhofer.
No questions. It seems like waiting for a year, this isn't really a big deal. We don't have any issues going on with it. I appreciate the committee's time to look into it, but I would be happy to go with the recommendation to let this ride a year.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan. Eric?
While I'm not convinced by the pros and cons really argument, I do think that this could be a beneficial thing for the town. But if there are no retail establishments that actually want to be able to deliver marijuana to local homes, then it doesn't seem useful to do the work to approve it.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I agree with all of that. I think, just doesn't seem to be a lot of pressure on us to work on this right now, but this is a discussion item. So before we decide whether to move forward on it or to table this for a year, I'll open this up for public comment. Anyone who would like to weigh in on this from the public, now would be your opportunity. As usual, raise your hand, speak up, wave at the camera, catch our attention in some way.
Kathleen has sent a message that she would like read.
Okay.
So it says, Kathleen, 17-year business owner, 30-year East Mag resident. I'm against opting out, especially based on no legitimate or sensible reason. People are not getting out of their homes anymore. What? In my opinion, nonsense, con, overconsumption concerns. What in the heck? This is the safest therapeutic substance known to man with no known lethal dose. Not sure who decides who is an overconsumer, but people are go to sleep like a baby and wake as refreshed as a kid. Concerned about how to control deliveries from multiple locations. What needs to be controlled by NED? Don't the stores have to log or send their sales to LEO, the state already? Why would that be different from people going to the store to physically store? And again, these additional cons below make literally no sense either. Negative impact on local businesses if external businesses could deliver in our community. May impact people buying locally, which is a desire for the town. Because someone thinks establishments from out of town will deliver to NED and take businesses away from locals, Really? Please. If people want to buy from elsewhere, they should be able to in a free market. If they can find anyone to deliver from outside of Ned that wouldn't be cost prohibitive for them, then they should have that option. And for your information, patients and caregivers have made home deliveries for the last 20 years without problems, to my knowledge. So why would this be different with overly regulated state licensed businesses? And I thought this language would only limit Nederland establishments from delivery. How can you limit others from delivery? And that's that.
Thank you, Karen. Any other public comment? Neither seeing nor hearing any. I'll bring it back to the board. I would, it sounds like from what I've heard from everyone, we have interest in tabling this for a year. So I would look for a nod of 4 from the board to simply table this question with our thanks to the Marijuana Ordinance Board Committee who worked on it. And Jonathan, nod of 4 for tabling for a year?
Yes, sir.
Tanya?
Sure.
Alan?
Yes.
Lindsay?
Yes.
Eric?
Table it.
I agree. That's 6. I think, thank you guys for the work put on. And of course, if we have a sudden slew of local businesses wanting to do delivery, we'll can reassess this. But for now, we will sit on it for a while. So thank you all. We will move forward into our monthly staff reports, beginning with our town administrator, Karen Garrity.
Well, hello, everyone. Good evening to the mayor and our trustees and staff and the public. It's really nice to be giving these reports before 10 o'clock in the evening. I wanted to give staff accolades tonight to our long timers, the staff who have been with us for many years. And the first is Larry Johns. So Marshall Johns has been with the town now for almost 19 years. He's well regarded as a person who really gets Nederland. He understands the community and he puts needs of others in front of his own. And he does this all the time, whether he's just helping somebody get their car out of a ditch, or he's controlling the traffic downtown during a moose crossing, or he's providing support to people suffering from a mental illness crisis. He also works with teens in engaging them in behaviors other than maybe risky behaviors, offering them more healthy alternatives. And he's just a great listener, and he is centered and kind, and he's often the front person for the town. And he is a great face to have in the town, and it's just so wonderful to work with Larry. In addition, I'm recognizing Community Center Manager Dawn Baumhover. She's been with the town for over 13 years. And on top of the excellent job she does in running the community center, she also is an invaluable member of our emergency preparedness and response team. And the experience she has had over the years is invaluable. She works really closely with the nonprofits and the Intermountain Alliance across the Peak to Peak region so that we keep our town ready in case there is an emergency. She's ready to activate the shelter as needed. She knows where all the supplies are. Red Cross has her phone number on speed dial. She's just a great asset to the town. And she's also a great advocate for the artist and art community. And then I want to recognize Public Works Manager Chris Pelletier. This month he celebrates his 10th anniversary with the town. His technical aptitude, his considerable knowledge of the town's infrastructure, they're valuable assets. And in addition to that, he's got a great sense of humor. He knows how to keep us all on our toes, especially April Fools. He he starts his workday often at 5:30 in the morning, and he'll be working till 11 o'clock at night because there's a late meeting or there's a winter storm or the water main broke. I have never once heard him say, this isn't in my job description. He has never complained to me about the long work hours. I can certainly see it sometimes in his face, and I know that he's put in those long hours, but he just keeps it going until the work gets done. He also, as everybody knows, he leaves no stone unturned when it comes to looking for contributed revenue, especially grant money. And as I've shared with you before, he's brought in over $2.5 million in grant money just in the time that I've been here. I also want to give a shout out and honorable mention to Cynthia Bakke. She's our Deputy Zoning Administrator, as well as E-Man, who works at the community center. They're both approaching the 10th anniversary in the next year or two. They both have their finger on the pulse of the community, and they have both just shown up during the pandemic in such a big way to still be able to provide services as needed in a safe way. For just to bring you up to date on some initiatives that town staff's been working on, we attended a Water Rights 101 training. So that was myself, our deputy town administrator, our public works manager, and our utility supervisor. And the utility supervisor is Jen Landon. She's pretty new to our team. So we just thought it was a great chance for her and for Miranda to learn more about the very complicated Water Rights 101 information. So we talked about, it was conducted by attorney Aaron Ladd. He's with Brandish and Raish. They are the town's water attorneys. We talked about everything from senior, junior, and conditional water rights to storage and augmentation plans, as well as the rules governing the allocation of public water sources, and then how conflicts arise and how they're resolved. So currently the town has an agreement to store 39.6 acre feet of in Varka Reservoir, and we're using between 16 and 17 acre feet annually. So that results in approximately 23 acre feet that are unused. So this positions the town well in regards to water rights. So I did want to make the offer that if the Board of Trustees is interested, Attorney Ladd said he is willing and happy to make a presentation to the board at a future date. I recently attended the first annual Wildfires Summit that Congressman Joe Neguse hosted along with the governor, and it was really a very rich and robust conversation. And I did attach to my report the highlights so that you could see sort of a summation of the event. Some of the things that we talked about had to do with wildfire preparedness, mitigation, resiliency, and recovery. And it was really a very productive panel discussion because there was such a variety of experts. We had scientists, we had firefighters, forest management experts, state and local emergency management officials. So that made it really a nice 360 view of the topic. The COVID update information that I included in the report is already outdated. So unfortunately, our case numbers are trending up again. We were blipping in the level blue matrices, metrics, and now we're back firmly in yellow. So we won't be moving into blue anytime soon. We have seen an increase in cases for 18 to 22-year-olds, but overall lower rates for people 65 and over, which is good news. It's still a little too early to say if the riots up on the Hill or what caused the increase in the rates for the 18 to 22-year-olds. CU Boulder was closed on Monday, so they didn't post their numbers, so I am tracking that but we are still seeing an increase in that age group, which we anticipated would happen anyways with online classes happening again at the university. But we'll see if we see an even bigger increase, which we would see probably in the next few days if it was related to the riots. As I'm sure you've all been hearing, there's been documented disparities in the Hispanic and Latinx communities, and we are actually seeing a decrease in that. And part of that has been these equity clinics that Boulder County's been setting up using their cultural brokers. And they started one in Longmont about 2 weeks ago. They have now added another one in Longmont, as well as one in Lafayette through Clinica. So we're happy to see those numbers going down and more equity across the board. We have over 88% of the people over 70 have now been received at least one dose of the vaccine. 55% of the people aged 60 to 69 have received one of the doses. So again, that's really good news. Total number of the population is almost 76,000 in Boulder County who have gotten at least one dose. So that's 27.6% of the population. And right now, from what I'm understanding in the state, Broomfield and Boulder County are trending very, very well with these numbers. I did just talk to our mountain cultural broker, as well as Chris Campbell, who is the emergency management person with the Boulder County Public Health, about a mountain vaccination clinic. They are still working on it. They are coming to agreement with Boulder Community Health and hope to have a contract in place soon, because Boulder Community Health is willing to administer the vaccines for us. And so again, we're all working together, our mountain cultural broker, along with some nonprofits in the area, and the town and the community center and Boulder County Public Health. We can get that set up. The hope is within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we get that up and running. The testing numbers and positivity rate, we're averaging 1,700 of those PCR tests conducted per day, and which is unfortunately a decline from last week. And then our positivity rate rose from, it was around 2.6 at the end of last week, and now it's up to 3.7. So it's unfortunate, but still we're not trending in a way that is making the Boulder County Public Health folks feel like we can't get on top of this. The Mountain Community Health Task Force is really gearing up their efforts to do a feasibility study of whether or not we could have a healthcare service provider up here in the peak-to-peak area that would also hopefully operate out of a facility eventually. So right now, the task force has broken into 3 work groups: challenges and opportunities, data, and community engagement. And we're meeting weekly, and we report back to the full task force bi-weekly. And right now we're conducting needs assessments and identifying target populations in this phase of the project. And then as far as community development goes, we've been very, very busy. Cynthia and Miranda have been working with folks in town. We've had a number of building inspections conducted already this year, and during February we had 57, which is higher than last year at this point, which was 42. We've also issued a number of permits, 11 of them compared to 8 last year. And then there were 2 building plans approved this year compared to 1 last year. And then this year, 6 building plan reviews were conducted compared to 5 last year. So I would say the community development building and planning team has really figured out a way to operate even during the pandemic. So that's my report, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Great. Thank you, Karen. I just want to also thank, it's incredible we have that many staff members who've been with us that long. It really is just a testament to the incredible work environment and dedication of those people and incredible place we live, and really appreciate all the work they've done over the decade plus some of them have been doing it. Any questions for the board, or if you want to chime in and say that you're really interested in a water law primer from our water law attorney, let us know. Now would be your chance.
I would love to hear about the water rights. This is Tanya.
Yeah, I'm pretty interested in that as well.
I think that's two trustees. That's all we need to do to put it on the agenda. And so I think, I think Karen, if we could reach out to our attorneys and get a little introduction to water law and our water rights situation, that'd be great.
I'll do that. And I do know that we've got some pretty packed agendas coming up in April. So maybe we'll be looking at May. But the mayor and I can work with Miranda and figure out a good time to have Aaron come and talk to us.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Next up is our town treasurer, Rita.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees, and members of the public. I'll be presenting the December financials to you tonight. Yay, I got it done. And before I start, I did want to mention that we did have an additional payroll in the month of December that is part of these financials, that are part of these financials as well. So in the general fund, the total revenue year to date totals $2,270,654, which is a 3% decrease from the budgeted amount. The year-to-date expenses total $2,041,432, which represents a 15% decrease from the budgeted amount. Overall, the year-to-date change in the actual fund balance equals an increase of $229,222 compared to the budgeted loss of $60,491. In the community center fund, the total revenue year to date totals $452,550, which represents a 4% increase over the budget amount. The total expenditures in the community center fund totaled $421,890, which is a 3% decrease from the budgeted amount. The 98% increase in capital expenditures is due to the replacement of the obsolete control center for the community center's mechanical system. Overall, the year-to-date change in the actual fund balance equals an increase of $30,660. In the water fund, the total revenue year-to-date totals $957,478, which is a 30% increase from the budgeted amount. This is primarily due to the PIF fees revenue totaling $197,150 versus a budgeted amount of $37,000. In the water fund, the total expenditures year-to-date total $609,656, which is an 18% decrease when compared to the budgeted amount. Overall, the year-to-date change in the actual fund balance equals an increase of $214,903. In the sewer fund, total revenue year-to-date totals $934,253, which is 3% of the budget amount. The total year-to-date expenditures in the sewer fund equal $921,980, which represents a 4% decrease over the budget amount. Overall, the year-to-date change in the actual fund balance equals a decrease of $10,092. In the streets fund, the total revenue equals $114,659, which is slightly lower than budgeted, and expenses are $65,894, which is a 49% decrease when compared to the budget. Overall, year-to-date change in the actual fund balance equals an increase of $48,765 compared to the budgeted loss of $13,303. As you all know, department heads have been with contingency budgets since last March, and due to that strategy, really all fund balances are better than projected, with the exception of the sewer fund. That's it.
Thank you, Rita. Any questions for the town treasurer? Not. Next up is our deputy town administrator and town clerk, Miranda.
So over the last 30 days, 9 business licenses have been issued, which puts us at a year to date of 20. I'm working on the liquor license renewals for the Caribou Room, Salto, and Trace Gringos. And marijuana, working on the renewals for the Kind Castle and Agati. Over the past 30 days, we've issued 8 building permits, which puts us at a year to date of 21. In the last 30 days, I've completed 7 court requests, which are all listed here for you.
A lot of numbers to read, man.
Let's see. So all the court requests are there, and then I give an Envision update. So I just want to give a huge shout out to our Envision committee. They've been working nonstop. Every week they're meeting, putting tons of extra time into developing their vision statements, goals, and objectives respective to those 7 subcommittees. And we actually have made all of their documents live and available to the public on a view-only basis. And so on this Google Drive folder, if you have time, I encourage you to take a look. You'll be able to just see how much work these teams have put in, but just a huge thanks to them. We also, again, are continuing to do updates on the Envision 2030 website, which includes the access information for all the subcommittee meetings. They do meet on an as-needed basis. Some are meeting weekly, some are bi-weekly, but you can always check the town website for the dates and times and the WebEx URL codes for their different meetings. The next full committee meeting has actually changed as of today. It's been postponed to March 30th, just to allow these subcommittees a little bit more time to work on their goals and objectives. And then the plan is at the April meeting for the Board of Trustees, we will bring forward all the work they've done so far to get your feedback. In working with the Envision Committee, one ask that they had of us was to put together a list of all the town projects. And so I just thought it was something interesting to share with the Board of Trustees. So the Excel spreadsheet to follow provides an overview of all of the projects we're working on, as well as a link to some information. So a lot of times that's a Board of Trustees agenda packet, but it just gives everyone an update on kind of where we stand. And as you can see from this document, not only town, sorry, it's a little small here, but not only are town departments working on a lot of different things, so are our advisory boards and commissions. So these are all active projects, and I think we've got 4 pages worth. So again, lots going on. I think it puts into perspective just how busy everybody is. So encourage the Board of Trustees and the members of the community to keep an eye out on what's happening with Envision, and we look forward to bringing everything before the board at the April 6th meeting. And that's my report.
Thank you, Miranda. Any questions for Miranda? All right. If not, we will move forward to our report from our town marshal, Larry Johns.
Good evening, board, and thank you very much, Karen, for your kind words earlier. Quick post-storm update, I guess I'll call it. First off, thanks to Officer Eric and Sergeant Jen for putting in some extra work there. They had prepped the truck, got extra chains set up on it, chained up all 4. Normally, we've only ever chained up the rear tires, so we picked up another set of chains just in case. Fortunately, it really didn't need to get used too much. We didn't have any crashes. We didn't have any rescues. I don't think we went down the canyon and plucked any motorists out of the canyon. So fortunately, that was a good storm for not dealing with a lot of extra drama. Again, thanks to Jennifer, she kind of drew the short straw and stayed overnight here in town, just in case Boulder Canyon was closed, so that we had somebody in town the next morning. Vehicle updates. We did get our new 2020 Tahoe, which you maybe have seen driving around all black. Well, now it's driving around with the new mountain graphic package on it. It looks really nice, really professional. And if you haven't seen it yet, you'll be seeing it soon, I'm assuming. Patrol 3, we went ahead and stripped off the old white vinyl that was on it and the old graphics because they were peeling and they looked really bad and shabby and unprofessional. That was done in-house and then put new lettering on. And so that saved us a fair amount of money doing that in-house. See what else do we got going on. Patrol 2 has been totally stripped out, inside and out. It's ready for sale. We're just waiting on a title. The Ford Explorer, I expect to have that in the same condition, stripped out and ready for sale, hopefully by the end of April. So those two cars should be out of here pretty soon. For what it's worth, unfortunately, Trustee Taylor's not here, but I know he'd be excited. But Boulder Sheriff did purchase a Tesla, and they're going to turn it into a traffic car or potentially a detective's vehicle. I'm not sure which yet, and I don't know that they know, but I did get a PowerPoint presentation from them. If anybody's interested in seeing that, I can forward it to you. It has some cost analysis and stuff like that. Important medical calls we went to. 2 heart attacks from adult males in, I would say, their 70s. One of them pretty much had no chance for survival, honestly. The other one did have some apparent heart attack signs the previous day or maybe days before and just never called. I just want to encourage people, call Nederland Fire, call 911, call non-emergent dispatch. It doesn't cost anything to have them come out and just check you over and send you down the hill. That costs, but if you're not having an issue, then great. If you are, obviously, they can find it and address the issue. Another pseudo-medical call, we had a DUI driver, suspected DUI driver, kind of crashed over by the mine shaft and drove around some picnic tables and landed it on the trail there. She thought she was coming from Bailey, or she thought she was in Bailey, I should say. Eventually, she became uncooperative, started banging her head on the inside of the car, and we didn't have any other options other than to transport her via hospital or via ambulance to the hospital. She was just out of control, so. Some general crime stuff that happened throughout the month. We had a cold report of guns stolen from a vehicle parked in the visitor center lot. Well, ultimately that wasn't the case. The guy was actually drank a little too much and reportedly remembered giving his guns to a friend because he didn't want to have him with him. So they were located. Everything was okay. There was no crime. We did have a felony domestic violence arrest at a VRBO from a group out of Texas. Ended up being a boyfriend-girlfriend fighting, a breakup, and the girlfriend got a little out of control after drinking down in Boulder and was stabbing the door with a knife. Fortunately, nobody was really injured in that. I reported several months ago that we had asked for some money to do a scanning project to scan several police files. We've had boxes built up here since I started. Well, we got at least 10 years completed. So that's all done, saved. As of 2020, we were doing our own in-house scanning now, so we're slowly whittling down the amount of paper that we need to use, which is going to be a nice thing over time. Just want to kind of bring some forethought to summer. I expect a pretty significant increase in motorcycle traffic through town with this new bar that they're going to open up in Estes Park, motorcycle bar. I think it's going to have a big following, and I think we're going to see a lot of people up and down the Peak to Peak Highway coming from all over, especially out of state, coming to see it. And since we're on the path of that, I expect just more motorcycles in town. I was chosen as a stakeholder for Nederland here to jump in with the Boulder County Hazmat Authority. They are they're not revamping, but they're re-looking at their program, and they're reaching out to private industry, emergency services, fire, law enforcement, for future planning as to what their program looks like and stuff. So far we've had 2 meetings. We're working on values, mission statements, and planning for the future. I will keep you guys advised of anything that's important from that. We do provide, or I shouldn't say we provide, we do pay for, I would call it an insurance coverage with the Hazmat Authority. And as you know, we've had to use them 3 times total over the last couple of years, and that cost would have been significant if we didn't have this insurance policy in place, I'll call it. Staff training, we all went out to Georgetown Lake and got some ice training in like Public Works did a few weeks ago. That's through CERS, the town's insurance provider, so maybe they will give us a bit of a break on our insurance rates. I'm not sure, hopefully. I will say that I did learn that traction control really does work, and you can't drive your car better than traction control can control your car for you. So it was a little enlightening. Excuse me. That will cover our post-required training for the year, which was nice. Last thing is just some of the things that we did good in the community this month I like to always touch on. Excuse me, just need to get a drink of water. We assisted a lady with a key broken off at her lock, and then was able to gain entry to her house without damaging anything to get to her spare keys. We assisted a stuck motorist. We changed a tire on an elderly woman's vehicle near the post office. Excuse me. And we also helped with a bit of a neighborhood issue where exterior lighting was causing some issues with other neighbors. I'm not sure if that's completely resolved, but we at least made an attempt, and I think things are better. And that is my update.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief? Not. Next up is Public Works and Chris.
Good evening. Thanks. Thank you, Mayor and the board. Just wanted to recognize my crew tonight for their dedication and commitment. Nikki actually slept at the shop Saturday night. Jen slept at the wastewater plant Saturday night to be prepared and ready to respond to any issues. And actually, we all would have stayed if the storm had tracked differently or if the timing was different. But some of us didn't really need to. Snow plowing is stressful, and when it gets out to be white out like it was in the afternoon on Sunday, you can't really see very well. It's no definition, just white. And then looking through the windshield and the mirrors, it's difficult. Things always break when we snowplow. I've been plowing with heavy equipment for nearly 25 years, and this time the grader broke, and which was an important machine. However, we did bring out the Mac out of retirement. Some of you may have seen it, and for those of you who don't know, the Mac is pounds old. plow truck from 1982 that's been modified, and for the most part it's worn out and the V-box is gone on it, but we still maintain it and keep it in the ready in case we need it, and we needed it this time and we brought it out. Actually very difficult to drive too. Only a couple of us know how to drive it. It's 18 speed split shift transmission. And really that's about it. My report's in the packet. If you have any questions about the report, I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone have any questions for Public Works? All right. Yeah, thanks to you guys for all the hard work you put in this weekend. I've heard nothing but good things. Moving on, finally, Dawn, Community Center report.
Good evening, Mayor and Trustees. And thank you to Public Works for the great job you did plowing the streets. I'm always impressed that we are so well plowed when I watch the news and see all the troubles they have down below on their neighborhood streets. So thank you very much. My report is in the packet, and it's pretty much a recap of the past year. So there's not a lot to say. Things are pretty routine at the community center. We're, ticking along, staying steady. They did cancel, Boulder County did cancel testing last Thursday ahead of the storm, thinking it might come in. There was some concern that there was going to be snow on Thursday. Turned out not to be the case, but nevertheless, not our call. There will be testing again this Thursday. And as Karen reported, they are working on getting a vaccine clinic up here. They're doing their best. So community center staff, we're monitoring our sump pumps as the spring comes on and the snow begins to melt. So we're, being mindful of our groundwater situation. Fortunately, we have the generator to take care of that, but we're still watching it carefully just in case. We have a couple of issues with the fitness place equipment, but we're already have the people have been called. They've come up to take care of it, and the parts are ordered, so that's being taken care of. Prior to the storm, the shelter team was in touch with each other and constantly all last week. We were in touch with our Boulder County Mountain Cultural Broker and our contact down in the EOC. We did arrange to have someone pick up the 8 access and functional needs cots in case they were needed in a sheltering situation. What that means is, so we already have cots stored in our emergency resource room, but access and functional need cots are longer, they're wider, and they're softer. So our main concern was for older adults who possibly might have had to shelter at the community center because of needs concerning oxygen. So, and heat in case the power was lost. Fortunately, that did not happen, but, and those cots belong to Boulder County. They go in the trailer that is supposed to be in the community center parking lot for your quick deployment on the peak to peak, but that trailer is caught up in a technical issue with Boulder County. They can't find the tags for the license plate. So until they do, it stays down in the lot at the Office of Disaster Management, and it will come to our parking lot when they have the tags. I also want to thank Karen for the kind words. I consider it a privilege to serve the community, and I'm happy to do so. And I think that is all I have to say. So thank you very much, and we will see you next month.
Thank you, Dawn. Any questions from the board? All right, we'll move forward. I won't repeat the stuff I have in the report. The only other thing I wanted to highlight was the fact that we have been having a lot of meetings with the Envision 2030 committees and subcommittees, and I really want to encourage members of the public to weigh in. We've basically written vision statements for the subcommittees at this point and are working on goals and objectives, or first draft of goals and objectives. These are the ones that are really going to take input from the community. So anyone who's interested, please start engaging. We want community input on those, because the Envision 2030 report is only as good as the amount of input we get from the community. So that's been taking up a lot of time. But otherwise, that's about all I had to report. So Mayor Pro Tem Baumhofer.
Hey, I'll keep it brief. I was unable to provide a written report. Most notable things from DDA meetings we largely discussed tonight was this adaptation of the investment policy, as well as that I'd like to kind of just make an announcement. I believe it's already been known, but the executive director, Hope Jordan, is leaving. So there was also a vote and the establishment of a hiring committee. That job is posting with kind of timelines, and just like to thank Hope for all of her time and service and work she's put into the DDA and all the amazing work she's really done through this pandemic and connecting folks and keeping folks together. And she's just has really been a large resource for a lot of folks in the community. So huge thanks there. As well as that, work continues, as Ron had mentioned earlier, with the 18 different projects from the public art to the wayfinding, all in their various stages. Another presentation was given by Mandy Vick on the public art. Don't want to spend too much more time going over it now, but it is definitely worthwhile for y'all to get on DDA's website and familiarize yourself with kind of some of these projects, and perhaps why they have such long timelines is the amount of work that goes into reaching out to stakeholders. And I think, as you saw from the comments from Barbara Hart, a DDA member, the DDA really does take their discussions and everything incredibly serious, and likes to really make sure that everybody's on the same page. Sometimes communication can get a little bit fuzzy in between certain folks, but really when it comes down to it on the projects, they work very, very hard. So just a huge appreciation to Hope and the rest of the folks in the DDA for sticking with these projects through a difficult pandemic while also all being their own business owners.
Thank you, Jonathan. Trustee Apt.
Yes, I won't go over things in my written report. Just say that we did have a meeting today with Excel discussing how they might help us with our Solarize program. We're coming forward with a partnership with Solar Energy International, trying to get discounts on solar panels for people in the community. And essentially, Excel is on a path that will get them to 85% renewable energy by 2030, and our goal is 2025. So that's a bit out of sync. So we may want to reconsider our goals if we can't come up with a way of closing that gap. And we did make significant progress. The last time I had Renewable Connect. It was a program that people could sign up for, either businesses or individuals, that provided them with renewable energy for less than what they were currently paying for the blend of fossil fuels with renewables. And we were hoping they were going to come out with that again, so we could help to close the gap by getting people to sign up for renewable energy at a discount, or certainly not at a premium. But they said that that program won't be available, and that there will be renewable energy available, but probably at a premium price, which is a little frustrating. So, they are very supportive of our goals, but we haven't come up with a strategy where we can see a path forward. And it may take some sort of project on our behalf to help people with buying solar panels to help close the gap to some degree. Capital improvements project or something along those lines. So, and had good meetings with communities for climate action, but you can see the details in the report. One last thing I'll say is I really appreciate the work that the police department did in my neighborhood. One of my neighbors got a heart attack, and the community response team was excellent. Unfortunately, he passed away, but the police department spent a great deal of time with the widow, and I really appreciate that kind of caring approach. And I'd like to thank Chris and his team for the great job of plowing they do in Nederland. It's so comprehensive and far better than communities in the flatlands get. So thanks to both.
Thank you, Alan. Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Yeah, just would like to call out the first priority that PROSAP defined in their last meeting, which was Barker Meadows improvements. And what's really exciting about that is that we, through some, really intrepid, persistent, and brilliant work by a number of people, did get the GOCO grant finally. The grant's so good they wrote it twice.
Woohoo!
And really, we have to thank Miranda Fisher, Ariel Gustafson, Nikki Dunn, and of course, Jesse Ansari for putting a tremendous amount of work into this and writing this grant twice and finally succeeding in getting it. And Chris Pelletier for his really important input, and Stephen Lefevre as well. So thank you guys so much. And we're really excited about that and talking about it on Thursday at the PROSAP meeting.
Here, here. Congratulations to all, and thanks for the amazing amount of work you guys put into that. That's wonderful. Thanks, Eric. Trustee Corvallin.
I don't really have much to report. Our RTD meeting is not till next week, so.
All right. Trustee Danforth.
Also, nothing to report at this time.
All right, and Trustee Taylor's report is in the packet. Obviously, he is not here with us this evening. And that concludes trustee reports. Does anyone have any other business they would like to bring up before we take a brief break as a board? If not, all those who are staring at their computer screens like myself can see that we have an executive session this evening. So I would propose that we take a 5-7 minute, let's call it a 7-minute break and return to our computers or the Board of Trustees return at 9:10 p.m. so that we can have our executive session. For all the public, thank you guys for coming out this evening. Thank you for comments. Again, if you ever have any more that you want to add, email us individually or all of us at bot@nederlandco.org. And please let us know what you guys are thinking. Let us know what we need to know. And thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. Board of Trustees, I'll see you guys all back here in 5 or so minutes. Just as a reminder for everyone who's here, the executive session is limited attendance to the Board of Trustees, town staff, and our town attorney. So those are town staff being our town, town administrator and town clerk alone. So anyone else, the meeting for you is over, and we won't be taking any action on executive session, obviously, but we'll be bringing that back. Anything we discuss will be coming back to the board in a future meeting. Well, by the clock on my computer, it is 9:10 p.m. So Miranda, if you would please call the roll again so we can ensure that the Board of Trustees have returned.
Trustee Danforth, Trustee Danforth, you probably have to do *6. It looks like you ended up muted again.
I'm here.
Yeah. Trustee Apt.
Here.
Trustee Coombs Ismail.
I am here.
Mayor Larson.
Here.
Trustee Corvallin.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhofer.
Here.
I would like to make a motion. I move to go into executive session for the purpose of receiving legal advice concerning the language and requirements of Article 8 of Chapter 16 of the Nederland Municipal Code related to off-street parking requirements pursuant to CRS Section 246402-4B. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Brando, if you would please call the vote.
Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Yes.
Trustee Apt.
Yes.
Trustee Danforth.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baumhofer.
Yes.
Trustee Corvallin.
Yes.
Mayor Larson.
Yes. As we are in executive session, would you please close the meeting to non-Board of Trustee members?